episode of Frank Perspectives, and I'm delighted to introduce my guest today with me, Bipul Naithani. He's a veteran banker with 27 years of experience across business functions, including collections, credit, and sales. He was a national collection head at ICICI, retail recovery head at Kotak Bank, and has also seen the business side of banking, being the national sales head of business loans at Kotak Mahindra. He's currently the co-founder and CEO of Collecto, a collection management and technology company which provides technology-empowered, customized collection management solutions to various banks, NBFCs, and lending fintechs. So very warm welcome to Bipul, and thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us today. Yeah, so very challenging times for all of us, unprecedented times, and for banks and lenders in particular. They would need to think out of the box to find solutions in such a situation. So in the current scenario, where moratorium has come in, regulatory interventions have come in, and of course, we know that businesses have been impacted, and as a result, their cash flows will get constrained. Mixing both these elements, how do you think the impact of pandemic will be there on the lending portfolio, more so from the collections perspective?
Yeah, Amit. Firstly, thank you for inviting and me being part of this webinar. Collections, I believe, need to be looked at in two parts: pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. Now, when I say that, pre-pandemic obviously would mean in terms of various aspects of collections, which would include typically bounce rates, infant ratios, non-starter ratios, etc. On the agency side, obviously, it is in terms of payouts, cost to collections, etc. Which need to be compared with how do they look at in the current scenario. So I think one thing which is happening, which I am very closely noticing right now, is that the comparisons are not being drawn properly. It's still that, the way the discussions are, the efficiencies still are being spoken about whatever were pre-pandemic as such, and that's a big gap. You need to somewhere adjust to the current scenario in terms of what has happened. So efficiencies pre-pandemic, if I have to just about kind of quote some figures to you, in the secured side, were close to around 93-94% in bucket X, and in bucket 2 they were closer to around 65%, 60 to 65%, and bucket 3 they were somewhere at around 40 to 45%. If you see the post-pandemic scenario, these efficiencies in bucket 1 have dropped down somewhere closer to around 80%, 82%, and I'm talking about banks efficiency right now. This is excluding the fintech, not taking them into consideration, because there the impact is much larger. So these are the kind of drops which are being observed, and while we are observing that, I think how do we deal with that wide various mechanism that we create within the collection system. For example, whether it has to do with the payout, whether it has to do with the incentivization model, whether it has to do with increasing capacity. In such times, the most ideal thing that you need to concentrate upon is, as we call ACR, average collect ratios. So what is the average collect ratios pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, obviously, again. So when we say that, if there were 250 cases being allocated to a telecaller, pre-pandemic scenario, do you need to cut it down to 150 cases because you need to spend more time on each case basis? So these are some of the things which you need to maybe drill down deep and try and figure out how do you create a balance. At the same time, how do you have a very close pulse on the cost equation also to ensure that it does not inflate?
So what you are saying, Bipul, is that the old measures of collection, whether it is collection efficiencies across buckets, whether it is portfolio allocation, whether it is incentivization, all aspects of it need to be re-looked at as the and then possibly we'd have to think what would be the situation post-pandemic, what would be the new benchmarks post-pandemic that needs to be factored in, right? What about the moratorium? Has moratorium created some kind of a challenge? Because what I hear is that on account of moratorium, there have been two broad approaches which the lenders have adopted. One is positive confirmation and negative confirmation, wherein some have gone ahead and given moratorium to most of their customers. Some have waited and for the customers to confirm if they want the moratorium. And in the second case, of course, where the number of people availing moratorium is less, but the bounce rates have gone up. So what's your view there? Moratorium, relating it to the how banks have gone about giving these moratoriums, approaching the customers, and how it has reflected from a collections point of view.
Yeah, so there's a lot of thought process which has been floating around moratorium of late. And my personal thought would be in the current scenario that it could have been handled better from the RBI side. Moratorium generally for a borrower, he believes that it is more to do with waiver rather than repayment. And unfortunately, in the Indian scenario, that's how it is looked at. There are customers on the moratorium side who are genuine and who are impacted and hence do not have the money to pay. But there may be a big lot which may get shielded under the garb of this, where they are, they would want to take undue advantage of the situation. So probably I think if RBI would have been a little bit more proactive in the moratorium step, when I say that, maybe they could have come down with specific indicators in terms of each product wise. What would be the impact on absolute value increase, tenure increase for customers, so that they could have clearly figured out that what is the impact and whether people who have the repayment capacity, should they avail this moratorium or not. Let's say for a housing loan example which was being quoted, that if you have a 14,000 installment and if you don't pay 6 installment, it works out to somewhere around 84,000 rupees. And for the same amount, if you avail a moratorium, you got to pay 5,70,000 rupees. So this is, I mean, if I am a borrower, this would make huge sense to me, that I think if I have money to adjust to make arrangements of, I would not, they shouldn't avail of it, because eventually it's going to be a big hole in the pocket. And I think somewhere shelling out this kind of a money in the long run surely is going to be huge amount of financial burden on these customers.
So you're saying this increase, the example that you got, it increases or primarily on account of long tenors and the interest rate impact?
Both put together. These are on one side the tenure is increasing, on the second side the absolute value in EMI is increasing. So this is the kind of impact, and that's what I say. If small indicators, reckoners would have been made available, I think then people would have been far more aware. And today the lending institutes, I'm sure, are taking a lot of proactive steps, calling up these customers, informing them what would be the impact, and they are also able to convert huge number of customers who are now willing to pay because of this kind of an awareness. So I think this is come as a post-mortem. This should have been more proactive, that RBI should have informed at that point in time itself. I think the situation could have been managed much better.
You're saying the detailing which was required to implement this moratorium, this was a much larger scale impact. Therefore, possibly some more micro level guidances would have helped avoid a little bit of ambiguity which prevailed around moratorium. Another aspect that I'm seeing, Bipul, is in terms of increased migration which is happening. A lot of people are moving out from their urban centers back to their towns, and as a result, what my feel is that this would possibly create some challenges of having more skips in the portfolio, customers not being traceable for the lenders. Do you see that as a challenge, or do you think that these workers will come back and over a period of time this will get solved by itself?
I'm sure any movement in itself or a transition creates ripple. And this would also have its impact. I'm sure it would have. So as to quote that the skip ratios in a bank, larger bank and NBFCs, typically in the past, traditionally we have seen close to around 2 to 3% kind of a skip ratios. And those ratios in the fintech, similarly, if you compare, would have been closer to a 2-digit number, closer to 10% plus. That's in the pre-pandemic scenario. And if you compare it today with a lot of this migrant population moving out, and a lot of those are maybe essentially from those categories which the fintech had targeted, quoting these as new to acquisition customers.
Okay, correct.
Right. So
first-time borrowers,
precisely,
yes.
And those would come under huge amount of stress because of this movement, and we surely see the skip percentage moving up because of this aspect. And I think in terms of skip handling also, we need to be more vigilant, more aware, because unlike in the world outside, the way skip is handled versus in India, there is a big difference. So we in Collecto also have a dedicated skip desk which we kind of which is a quasi tech versus a manual kind of an effort, where you kind of track those customers. And I think that's a big pain area for the banks, and I'm sure banks, NBFCs, fintech would be looking at huge amount of involvement and support system to be brought into this, so as to be able to recover money from this segment because of this movement. So I think, yeah, that's a very pertinent issue which you raised, and it would have its impact on the portfolio.
And also, drawing from what you said on FTBs, the first-time borrowers or new to acquisition category, I'm also seeing that there is a potential challenge of for the very small ticket, possibly for the NBFCs, small ticket loans, business loans, maybe in the unsecured segment also, maybe for MFIs also, possibly have an increasing challenge of skips, because that's where you have more of FTBs.
The MFI obviously was in a challenging situation due to demon earlier on. And the NPA numbers had already moved to more than double digit numbers there already at that point in time. We see huge amount of challenge in this area. How do they look at handling and managing the situation is going to be the key crux of collection management over a period of time.
This is going to impact quite a wide spectrum of collection aspects. But delving deep into some of these specifics, what are the key transformation or changes that you see in the collection strategies?
So collection strategy per se, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of change, and people who are willing to look at opportunities and how to create different options, I'm sure will hold edge over others. I was talking to somebody from the fintech industry, and their bucket X efficiency was big time suffering last month. And during conversation, they just popped out that if we can offer you a portfolio for 5-6 days, will you be able to? How do you look at that? And I think with a fixed payout, that was a difference. And I had never seen that earlier on in my collection career, something like this for a short period being offered to collect. And we took it up, and I think from our efficiency, which they were delivering of around 50-60%, we could take it to 65-70% kind of an efficiency. So I think some of these things, plus what you do legally also, that's going to be key area in terms of how do you manage the legal piece, since there's a lot of delinquency movement within buckets. How do you revamp your entire legal process, use that as an effective tool to solve cases in collections? I think that's going to be the key metrics maybe somewhere.
Also, you talked about incentivization here, but there is another aspect to it, which is possibly on account of manpower allocation within the organizations, right? Because lending per se from the business side is going to be fairly limited, and pressure on collection is likely to be higher, and therefore a lot of the cross-functional movement of people or responsibility being given to the sales team to do collections may also be a strategy which is likely to evolve as we have seen in the past.
I'm sure that's going to be key, and I think it's interesting to see that there's going to be a lot of movement of sales to collections under credit to collections. But while this happens, my key point to you, Amit, is how does this get executed at a field level is very, very critical.
Very true.
Because merely by putting these people into collection, you can't claim that you have obtained X% productivity or the increase in productivity. It has to happen in a very smooth transition manner, whereby you need to create buddy concepts, HR training platforms. You need to also have the training download modules, etc., to be created, and incentivization models which need to properly be explained to the sales team. And more importantly, you need to have a very positive approach towards embracing these people into the collection ecosystem, because I think that's what is required. When such a movement happens, it is not merely just about getting people involved and asking them to deliver from day one. So I think if it happens in such a slow and transitional way, somebody who manages it well, I'm sure that's going to be the key of the entire process.
No, very true. I think you have hit the nail on the head. We're saying that by merely allocating salespeople to collections, not going to be the solution. The execution is the key. And I've heard it often, and I've spoken about it often, that collections is as much an art as it is a science of bounce rates, rollover rates, and collection efficiencies and portfolio allocations. And one of the important aspects that I realize is also in terms of ability to communicate with the customers. I think that's one very important piece, your ability to gauge the customer intent and also communicate with him. And this is possibly not the time to be very aggressive, but yes, you have to be firm enough in terms of asking the question. The communication aspect, what would be the strategies? Because that's a very, very important and fundamental aspect of customer engagement.
So you rightly pointed it out. It has to be more assertive, reaching customers, engaging properly with them, being able to communicate to them, and a lot of empathy into your entire tone in terms of understanding the situation. At the same time, being able to communicate well to these customers that what would be the repercussions of these moratoriums, whether moratoriums which we call about, or delayed payments, etc. How would it impact their repayment history? I believe you got to have a proper fair system, and if we can manage it that way, I think taking a cue of whatever I earlier mentioned about the engagement piece between these two teams, I'm sure there's a lot of value to be derived out of this entire arrangement.
What about agencies, people? Naturally, if I have to just build it up logically, I have sufficient manpower. My business teams are also focused on collections now because of the moratorium. The kind of push that you can create on recovery is also going to be fairly limited. And therefore, the question would be, to what extent do I need the collection agency support, especially in terms of number of manpower, number of collectors? Natural temptation is maybe I should cut down the agency engagement for some bit of time. Do you think that's the right strategy, or do you think that there could be some challenges it may create in the long term?
Again, very valid, Amit, in terms of the business position or the business head or somebody at a head level who's kind of going to decide the entire fate of this equation. Let's say typically the example would be how much of your sales resource would you want to use in collections, number one. And I said, running them through this engagement, you can create a huge amount of productivity model out of that. But the challenge there for them is that they are, while they would be there doing the collections, they can only manage up to only a particular piece, which is like awareness calling or a soft bounce calling. For the balance piece, you surely need the collection ecosystem, surely needs the support system of agency as such. So when I say that these agencies are traditional in model, and as Collecto, what we are trying to do is give them empowerment through technology tools, whether you talk about a mobile app or a field service, and bring them together on the technology side so as to ensure that their productivity increases, which in turn increases their revenue, etc. And that's how they become a more organized part of the entire system. Even in 2004-05, there were bigger banks, larger banks who had the in-house team to the extent of 1,500 people. The other had around 500, 600 people. Still had around 20,000-30,000 agencies pan-India operating for them. So that's because of a typical constant that to what time can you, number of people can you appoint and employ in your collection system, and you always need an external support, and that's where they come into play. Payout and incentivization, I think there's something which I would want to add on the agency side, that it has to be looked at as a common shareholder or a stakeholder at a platform where whatever they do, they are given due deserving credit and to the value that they bring to the system. So if you look at them as an agency, and if you just feel that okay, I think they are being allocated something and they are earning money and they're making big money out of that, I think that's where things are going wrong probably. Because if you see the payout structure today versus the payout structure maybe 15 years back, nothing has changed there. So that's unfortunate, because there's no relook in terms of the cost per telecaller, the conveyance costs, the overall salaries, etc. have gone big time high, but that is not factored in the payout anywhere as such. It still remains to be the same payout, or it is reduced maybe. Just because these traditional agencies are so fragmented that there is somebody or the other available to do that job, the larger institutes take undue advantage of that. I think somewhere they have to be a little conscious, and somewhere that the sensitivity should be there, that how do we give them value for whatever they are bringing to the system. That's my view.
And another thought that triggers in my mind is possibly the benchmarks that we have put for these incentive slabs or incentive structures, right? Pre-pandemic benchmarks of bucket X being 97% for, let's say, low ticket, versus now the situation may be very, 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 very different. So I think there might be some area of work for lenders as well as agencies to rework out the way incentivization benchmarks are being set.
Right. I just quoted the earlier example where there was a fixed payout. So likewise, you can
Correct.
have a variable model. And I mean, I'm sure that if a collection head goes to a business and says that my bucket X efficiency currently is at 45, and I need to bring it to 65, 70, and for that I need a 30 bips or a 50 bips additional payout. I don't know the current system how much would one agree to kind of increasing this additional cost. But I think somewhere you need to derive the value rather than just about looking at the cost element as such. Because if you are able to control delinquency in X bucket, if you are able to ensure that your loss flow movement in 90 DPD or the loss bucket decreases, to what extent? And that's where the fair play is. If you are able to derive that equation, I'm sure it surely makes sense to spend some more money and ensure that you put a full stop right at X bucket days in for such cases.
You mentioned technology, and I understand Collector is doing a fair bit of investment and development in making collection management processes more tech oriented. You're helping a lot of collection agencies do it, a lot of fintechs and banks and VFCs do it. Right? What specifics can you share with our audience in terms of the basic technology interventions which are necessary at this point of time, or which can help banks improve their collection processes?
While on the lending side, in the fintech area, you see there's a lot of technology which has got involved. So whether you talk about onboarding customers, whether you talk about underwriting processes, whether you talk about disbursement processes, everything has had its share of a little bit of an impact and improvement. But if you see collection per se, there's been no technological changes. I think there was a lot of things which should have been incorporated now on account of the learnings of 2007-8, Amit. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening at that pace. So there's still the lacuna in terms of understanding whether it is how do you deal with collection processes per se, legal implementation. So all these are still the pace with which it should have moved ideally. To my mind, there is some amount of lacuna out there, and it is not moved. Banks collection processes versus how do we improve it for the agency? I think these are two separate things, because all the larger banks and NBFCs have their own collection module, as we call it. So there are quite a few in the market, and so hence Collector looks at it more from the perspective that what technological advantage comes to the agency.
So at the ground level, where the real
at the ground level. So there are a lot of agencies who do not even have a dialer system today, who do not even have a mobile app or a desktop app or a CRM, properly defined CRM. What should the CRM fields carry? Essentially, what kind of a data would you want to be, to have there? So these are the big gaps there in the collection agency setup right now. And the fact that they have been operating for the last 15, 20 years and still these gaps exist can clearly explain the kind of technological advancement required in this area.
What about the newer, fancier technologies like artificial intelligence? And I'll tone it down a little bit, saying that more and more predictive analytics. And is there a role for more of data analytics, which can help?
Absolutely, Amit. I think the kind of data management, analytics, business intelligence, which you can associate with collections, I've never seen that. I believe it can't be done that way on the sales side. So that is the kind of potential on the collection side. So you can cut down the collection into so many varied metrics, month on bounds, onboarding customer, whether what stage delinquency happened and how did it trigger, and there's so much to do on the analytics and business intelligence side on in collections. And whatever their internal team currently, the larger banks, NBFC, etc., are doing, I think there's still a large scope on the technology side, as I just mentioned, in terms of making it more user friendly, CRMs being more interactive and more quick and to access, easy to close, etc. I think if these are the things which we look at from the technology side, surely there are a lot of things which can be done.
So thank you, Bipul. That's all the time that we have. But I thank you so much for joining us today, taking the time out. And now, from Frank Banker side, we wish Collecto all the very best in trying to revolutionize the way collections will happen. I'm sure your services will be much in demand. And I thank you again for sharing your perspective.
Thanks a lot, Amit. Thank you for this session.